My name's Joe and I'm a MIDotaur, but for today, you should call me the MIDotaur, as in MID, the mortgage interest deduction, which is the topic of today's show. Joining me to discuss the MID is Sheila Crowley, President and CEO of the National Low Income Housing Coalition. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I'm delighted to be here, Joe. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. Sheila, as you know, here on Mythbusting in the Morning, we like to explore matters of popular opinion and fantastical phenomena to sort of sift out what is real from what is mythical. Now, on the topic of the mortgage interest deduction, we're going to explore the popularly accepted idea that the mortgage interest deduction mostly benefits middle-class Americans in their efforts to buy homes.
Let me stop you right there, Joe. First of all, only 21% of all taxpayers in the United States actually take advantage of the mortgage interest deduction, and only half of homeowners who have mortgages claim the mortgage interest deduction when they file their taxes. And they tend to be higher income people, and that's why the mortgage interest deduction is so regressive.
Hang on. The mortgage interest deduction is regressive? Every time I ever hear anyone talk about the MID, they're talking about a middle-class program.
No, actually that's wrong. In fact, it is households with incomes above $100,000, which are only 20% of the taxpayers in the United States, receive 82% of the benefit of the mortgage interest deduction.
Okay, so I don't want to argue with you here, but I know I've heard it said many times that the MID is primarily for middle-class people. That's not true.
It really depends on how you define middle class, and some people would like to define it as those with incomes up to $200,000 a year. It does benefit households with incomes between $100,000 and $200,000 a year, but by far the people who benefited from the most are the ones with the most money and the biggest mortgages and the biggest homes.
Okay, so the mortgage interest deduction is regressive. We know that. But it's not that expensive, right? It's not some boondoggle. It's something that doesn't cost Americans very much money.
No, that's another big myth. The mortgage interest deduction costs the taxpayers $75 billion a year.
Billion? That's 75 billion with a B?
That's a B. Yes, it is.
Wow.
I know, and not only that, it costs the taxpayers 153% more than the combined value of all of the programs that we have that directly support low-income families and communities.
Wait a second, Sheila. If I'm hearing you right, you're saying that we spend more each year on the housing needs of wealthy Americans than we do on the housing needs of poor people.
You do hear me correctly. That is absolutely what I'm saying. Our priorities are totally out of whack. We could end homelessness in the United States tomorrow if we would just spend our housing resources more efficiently.
No way. We can end homelessness? I thought homelessness has been around forever.
Another myth. Modern homelessness has only been around since the late 1970s. I remember before there were lots of homeless people on our streets. It was the late 70s when we began to see the decline in the supply of rental housing that is that is driving homelessness in our country.
All right. So the MID is regressive. It's expensive. It's targeted at the wrong people. But it serves a certain point to our economy, right? Like people need the mortgage interest deduction to buy homes.
Actually, there's no evidence that the mortgage interest deduction is an incentive to move from being a renter to being a homeowner. Most people who are moving from being a renter to a homeowner tend to be lower income people or moderate income people. They take the standard deduction. They're not going to benefit from the mortgage interest deduction.
Well, let me give you a case in point. When I bought my Labyrinth just 3 years ago, I factored in the MID when I was deciding how much I could take out in my loan. So in my case, the MID did help me buy a Labyrinth. It helped me buy the place where I live. It happened at least in my case, so it happens, right?
Well, for rich people like you, but most people don't have money like you have. You're a talk show host. You are an exception, not like most people in the United States.
So you're saying because the mortgage interest deduction is such a bad piece of policy, we should just get rid of it, right?
I'm not in favor of getting rid of it altogether, nor is my organization, the National Low Income Housing Coalition. We're simply saying we could make some simple changes to the current tax structure to make it be fit more with today's economy and today's housing market, and it would make it a fairer tax code and make the tax benefit available to millions more homeowners who are people with low and moderate incomes.
Wow, well, if we can end homelessness, that definitely seems like something everyone here would really want to do. Well, we've been learning a lot, and I want to thank you for that, but we are running out of time. Before we go, I'd like to do a game that we do with all our guests. I'm going to read a list of things, and you're just going to respond by telling me if you think they're real or mythical. You ready?
I'm ready.
Gravity.
Real.
Okay. Unicorns.
No, mythical.
Households with incomes above $100,000 really need a government subsidy to afford their housing.
That's totally mythical.
The Parthenon.
I've seen it. Yes, it's real.
Atlantis.
I think it's only in Las Vegas, but mostly it's mythical.
Leprechauns.
Oh, yes. I'm Irish there.
Foo Fighters.
I think it's a rock group.
Okay. The shortage of 7.1 million homes affordable and available to extremely low-income Americans.
That is a fact, and it is something that we as Americans can easily solve if we just prioritize our housing spending in a better way.
All right. Well, Sheila, this has been great. Thank you again for joining us. To the audience, I hope you'll tune in again next week as we interview a team of Canadian lumberjacks about the myth of Bigfoot. Thanks a lot.
Totally.